Maybe yes, maybe no. Once upon a time, there was an old fisherman named Haru who lived in a small village by the sea. His days passed with the calm of the waves, casting his net into the water and waiting patiently for the current to grant him his sustenance. One morning, when he left his cabin, he saw that a strong overnight storm had destroyed his boat. The neighbors ran to console him. "What misfortune, Haru? Without your boat, how will you fish?" Haru simply smiled and said, "Maybe yes, maybe no." Without another word, he began to gather the remains of his boat, patiently tying the planks that were still usable. Days passed, and while Haru repaired his boat, a young merchant arrived in the village looking for wood. Seeing the remains of Haru's boat, he offered a large sum of money for the wood that was still usable. The neighbors exclaimed with enthusiasm, "What luck, Haru! Now you have money without needing to fish." Haru simply smiled and replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." With the money, he decided to order a new boat, stronger than the previous one. But the wait would be long, as the village carpenter had many orders ahead of his. While waiting for his new boat, Haru spent his days walking along the coast, observing the sea, and collecting small shells left by the waves on the sand. One afternoon, he saw a group of fishermen rowing quickly toward the shore. Their faces were pale. When they arrived, they told that a sudden storm had caught them out at sea, and 2 boats had capsized. The neighbors looked at Haru with amazement. "What luck that your boat was destroyed earlier. Had you gone out to sea, you would have been in danger." But Haru, with the same calm as always, replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." And he continued walking along the shore, letting the sea breeze brush his face. Weeks later, the village carpenter finished Haru's new boat. It was bigger and more resistant than the previous one, with solid wood and new sails. The neighbors gathered to admire it. "What luck, Haru! Now you have the best boat in the village." Haru smiled serenely and replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." The next day, Haru took his new boat to the sea. The breeze was soft and the waters calm. He cast his net and waited patiently. Shortly after, he felt a strong pull. When he pulled up the net, he discovered he had caught a large golden fish, the biggest he had ever seen. When he returned to shore, the news spread quickly. A noble from the neighboring city heard about the fish and offered a large reward for it. "What fortune, Haru! You've obtained unexpected wealth." But Haru, with the same peace as always, replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." The noble took the golden fish to his palace, where he held a great feast. However, after the meal, several guests fell ill. Alarmed, the noble ordered an investigation, and it was discovered that the fish had been poisonous. Furious, the noble sent his guards to the village to find Haru. The neighbors, terrified, exclaimed, "What misfortune, Haru! Now the noble blames you for the illness of his guests." But Haru, with the same calm as always, replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." When the guards arrived, instead of arresting him, they told him that the noble had changed his mind. His doctor had discovered that those who ate the fish had fallen ill, but had also been cured of a long-standing ailment. Now, the noble wanted to thank him instead of punishing him. The neighbors were even more astonished. "What great fortune, Haru! Now the noble owes you a favor." But Haru simply smiled and said, "Maybe yes, maybe no." Time passed, and the noble, grateful for the cure, offered Haru a small plot of land near the sea to build his house. The neighbors, surprised by the generosity of the noble, commented, "What luck, Haru! Now you have a place of your own to live." Haru, while accepting the gift without haste, simply replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." Seasons passed and Haru built his house. Though bigger than his old cabin, the new house was still simple, without unnecessary luxuries. The sea remained his companion, and his life simple. One day, the noble's son came to visit the village. Upon seeing Haru's modest house, he asked curiously, "Why didn't you build a mansion like my father's? You could live more comfortably." Haru looked at him calmly and replied, "Comfort is a choice, not a necessity. For me, what's essential is calm. And you, what are you seeking?" The young man, confused, did not know what to answer, but he stayed thoughtful as he walked alongside Haru along the shore. The young man stayed in the village for a few days, seeking answers in the stillness of the place. During his stay, he approached Haru and said, "I've reflected a lot on what you told me, and I've realized that I've been seeking happiness outside of myself. I thought that wealth and luxury would bring it, but now I see that what I really need is to find peace within myself." Haru smiled gently. "Maybe yes, maybe no. What's important is not what you seek, but what you find when you stop searching." The young man, grateful for the lesson, returned to the palace with a new perspective. He decided to change his life, seeking peace rather than wealth. Time passed, and with it the seasons changed. Haru, without haste, continued his simple life, fishing and enjoying the small wonders of day-to-day life. Every time someone told him his life was fortunate or unfortunate, he responded with the same calm, "Maybe yes, maybe no." One day, while walking along the coast, Haru found an old man sitting under a tree, gazing at the sea with a thoughtful expression. The old man, seeing Haru approach, asked him, "How can you be so calm all the time? Life is full of ups and downs. Doesn't it affect you?" Haru sat beside him, also looking at the horizon. "Life is like the waves of the sea," he replied. "Sometimes they're gentle, sometimes they're turbulent, but the sea remains the same regardless of the size of the waves. The key is not to cling to the storm or the bright sun, but to be like the sea, always present without judgment." The old man sat in silence, reflecting on Haru's words. "So, you don't care about what happens?" "It's not that I don't care," Haru replied. "It's that I understand that what happens is beyond my control. The only thing I really have is my response to it." The old man looked at the sea, as if trying to find an answer in the waves. After a long silence, he said, "I've lived a life full of desires and worries, always seeking what I thought would bring me happiness. But in the end, it seems it's never enough. Maybe your words are right." Haru smiled softly and pointed to a nearby rock. "Look at that rock," he said. "It has no desires or worries. It's here, firm, simply being what it is, being part of the whole without needing to seek or expect." The old man looked at the rock and then at the sea with a deeper understanding. "So, the key is to stop seeking and simply be?" "Maybe yes, maybe no," Haru replied, once again in his calm tone. The old man spent the rest of the day with Haru, listening to the sound of the waves and feeling the salty breeze on his face. As the sun began to set, a sense of peace took over him, as if he had finally released the weight of his old worries. That night, while they dined together, the old man asked, "Haru, how can I find this peace you have? I've tried so many things in my life, but I always feel incomplete." Haru lifted his gaze to the stars. "Peace is not something you find outside of yourself. It's inside, like the sky is always above the clouds. The clouds can obscure it, but the sky remains there, unchanging. In the same way, our mind may be clouded by thoughts and desires, but peace is always present if we stop clinging to what happens." The old man stayed gazing at the starry sky, feeling something inside him lighten. "So, how do we stop clinging?" Haru answered, "Let the waves pass without trying to control them. Don't fight what comes, just observe and move forward. Like the sea, accept whatever comes without attachment, without rejection." The old man, although still with many questions, began to understand. Days passed, and whenever something worried him, he remembered Haru's words. Little by little, he started to practice stillness, observing his thoughts as if they were passing clouds. One day, after several days without rain, the storm returned. This time, the wind blew harder and the waves rose with fury. The villagers hurried to secure their belongings, fearful of what might happen. Haru, however, walked calmly toward the sea, as if nothing had changed. The old man, seeing him, ran to meet him. "Haru, aren't you worried about the storm? It's about to destroy everything." Haru looked at him slowly and replied, "The storm comes and goes, but I remain the same. The waves are strong, but they are not me. So you don't care?" "It's not that I don't care," Haru said. "It's about knowing that whatever comes does not define me. I am the one who chooses how to respond." The old man, hearing these words, felt more at peace, as if he could finally release the fear he had been carrying all his life. The storm passed, and the next day, the village woke up to a transformed landscape. Some houses had suffered damage, but not as much as feared. The trees had bent in the wind, but they were still alive. The old man, who had been watching from his window, approached Haru, who was already repairing one of the affected cabins. "The storm has left its mark, but it has also brought renewal. Perhaps everything in life is like this. Difficult moments seem to destroy us, but in reality, they transform us." Haru looked up as he drove a nail into the wood. "The storm doesn't destroy or create. It simply is. We are the ones who choose what to do with it. Renewal comes when we allow change to happen without resisting it." The old man nodded slowly, a slight smile forming on his face. "So, it's all just a matter of how we respond?" "Maybe yes, maybe no," Haru replied, always with his serene tone. The old man, at last, understood that it wasn't always necessary to understand everything, only to accept what came and respond with wisdom. Time passed, and with it, the old man began to live more lightly. Each day he observed the sea, the waves, and his own heart. He no longer clung to worries or expectations. He now knew that everything passed, and peace was in acceptance. One afternoon, while walking along the beach with Haru, the old man asked him one last question. "Haru, I used to think that life was about reaching something, seeking a goal, finding a purpose. But now, I feel that peace is in simply being. How could I not realize this before?" Haru, without looking at the old man, pointed to the horizon. "The sun rises and sets every day. It never stops to ask if it's doing it right. It simply does it because it's in its nature. So it is with us. The problem isn't in what we seek, but in the belief that we need something to be complete." The old man nodded, feeling the depth of these words. "So, how do we know if we're on the right path?" "The right path is the one you walk, no matter where it leads. There is no other." The old man, with a lighter heart, spent the remaining weeks in the village with Haru. Together, they walked along the beach, fished, and shared silences filled with understanding. The village began to notice the change in him. He no longer rushed, didn't complain, and his eyes reflected a deep calm. One afternoon, the old man received a letter from his family, inviting him to return to the city. The letter spoke of family matters and responsibilities awaiting him, but when he read it, the old man felt neither hurry nor anxiety. He approached Haru, who was sitting near the shore, looking at the sea. "Haru, I've been called from the city. I must return to my old life. But now I don't know if I want to return to what I used to be." Haru looked at him gently. "Don't return to what it was. Return to what you are now. The place may be the same, but you won't be the same. Life doesn't stop, and each moment is a new opportunity." The old man thought about his words as he watched the sea. Like the waves, his life too was a flow, and he couldn't stay anchored in the past. So, should I go not for what it was, but for what I am now? Maybe yes, maybe no, Haru replied with his usual serenity. The elder decided to return to the city, but with a new perspective. He was no longer searching for something, nor was he afraid of what he would find. As he traveled, he recalled the lessons Haru had shared with him and how his life had changed since he met him. Each step felt lighter, as if he had let go of a burden he had been carrying for years. Upon arrival, he was welcomed by his family with joy but also with concerns. There was much to discuss, responsibilities to tend to, and expectations to meet. However, the elder, although aware of his duties, no longer felt defined by these things. One afternoon, his daughter asked, "Father, have you changed so much in such a short time? Why do you seem so unbothered by everything we need to do?" The elder looked at her calmly and answered, "I have learned that, although external things change, my peace does not depend on them. Now I understand that the greatest achievement is not fulfilling everything others expect of me, but maintaining serenity while doing what I must." His daughter looked at him, surprised, as if she were seeing her father for the first time. "Does that mean we can live more calmly, without so much pressure?" "Maybe yes, maybe no," answered the elder, smiling with the same tranquility as Haru. The days in the city passed, and although the elder continued fulfilling his responsibilities, he did so with a sense of lightness. He no longer felt trapped by expectations, nor feared the future. He knew that each moment was an opportunity to choose his response, and like the sea, he could flow with life without losing his essence. One afternoon, while walking through the gardens of his house, he encountered a young man he had known years earlier when he still lived in the city. The young man approached, visibly agitated. "I've been running around all day, worried about my projects, about what could go wrong. How can you be so calm? How did you find peace amidst all this?" The elder looked at him with a serene smile and said, "Peace is not found in avoiding what we fear or in controlling everything around us. Peace is in recognizing that we can't always control everything, and that's okay. The key is to release fear and accept what comes because everything passes, just like the waves." The young man, who had always thought he had to fight against everything, stopped to reflect. So, is the key to let go? Maybe yes, maybe no. The important thing is that you stop clinging to what you cannot change and learn to flow with what is. The young man sat silently, looking at the elder with a mix of awe and confusion. For years, he had lived under the belief that success and peace only came through constant effort and control. Now, the elder's words had planted a seed in his heart, but he wasn't sure how to nurture it. Days later, the young man returned to his usual life, but something had changed. He began to question his frantic search for results and wondered if, by being so focused on the future, he had been missing what truly mattered. He remembered the elder and his tranquility, and for the first time, he allowed himself to feel that perhaps not everything had to be so urgent. One afternoon, the young man decided to visit the elder again, seeking deeper answers. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me," said the young man. "How do you live without this constant need for control? How do I let myself go?" The elder looked at him serenely, and as the sun set behind him, he said, "Control is only an illusion. When you stop fighting against the waves, you stop being carried away by them. Life becomes easier when you learn to be part of it, without trying to dominate it." The young man sat next to him, watching the horizon. A deep silence filled the space between them. It was as if the answer was already there, in the simple act of being present, without expecting anything. Over time, the young man began to practice what the elder had taught him. He stopped rushing, stopped trying to control every detail of his life, and started accepting things as they came. Although it was difficult at first, little by little, he began to experience a new way of living. His heart was no longer filled with anxiety, and instead, he began to find peace in simple moments. A sunset, a conversation, the sound of rain. One day, while walking through the city, he encountered the elder once more. The young man approached, no longer with the urgency he once had, but with a renewed tranquility. "Haru was right," said the young man. "It's not about fighting against what comes, but accepting what is. I found something within myself that I didn't know existed before." The elder smiled, but said nothing. He knew that words were no longer necessary, that the young man had begun to walk his own path of understanding. The young man looked at the elder, and for the first time he truly understood what it meant to live in peace. He no longer cared so much about what the future held because he knew that, no matter what happened, he would always have the ability to choose his response. "Thank you," said the young man, without hurry, without burden. "Maybe yes, maybe no," answered the elder, with his usual serenity and wisdom. Years passed, and the young man, now a mature man, continued his life with a calmness that surprised those who knew him. He had stopped seeking answers outside of himself, understanding that everything he needed was already within him. The elder's lessons were still present in his mind, and in every moment of uncertainty, he remembered the words he had learned. Maybe yes, maybe no. One day, he returned to the village by the sea, searching for his old teacher. It had been a long time since their last meeting, and although he knew the elder no longer lived in the same house near the beach, he felt a deep need to pay tribute to what he had learned. He approached the place where they used to sit and looked at the sea, as if waiting for some sign. Then, a figure appeared in the distance. It was an older man with a serene smile on his face, walking toward him. The man approached, and upon looking closer, the young man recognized him. It was the elder, as if time had not passed. "I haven't gone," said the elder softly. "What we shared is in you. It always will be." The young man, now completely at peace, understood that his teacher had never truly left. What he had learned, what they had shared, was now part of him, present in every action, in every breath. "Thank you, Master, for everything." The old man smiled, and as always, his words were simple. Maybe yes, maybe no. What matters is that you see now. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in golden and pink tones. The young man and the old man sat in silence, watching the sea, without the need for words. The wind caressed their faces, and the waves followed their eternal cycle, rising and falling, without hurry, without worry. The young man now understood that it wasn't about reaching a destination, but about learning to live the journey, with everything it brings. The calm, the storm, the laughter, the tears. Everything flowed, everything passed, and everything was part of the same whole. The old man, with one last glance at the horizon, slowly stood up and gave the young man one final smile. "Always remember, everything passes, but the sea, the sky, life, they always remain what they are." The young man nodded, and as he watched the old man walk away, he felt a deep peace in his heart. He no longer needed to search for answers anywhere beyond his own being. Everything he needed was right there, in each moment, in each breath. And so, the cycle continued, with each day bringing a new opportunity to live fully, knowing that maybe yes, maybe no, but always everything was perfect just as it was.